And so, I mean, it's I don't know how to fix it. I don't know where to start.
I don't either.
Other than, I guess as artists, just encouraging people to think and question and
right. I think so. There are probably very few artists who try to come up with solutions, and I admire those artists who have the capabilities of working with people outside the visual arts and trying to create solutions as well.
Right.
As well as other, scientists and other people.
Right.
But I think it's a matter that I'm concerned about bringing up these questions and bringing up for the viewer to contemplate, our life.
Right.
It's not just, we've talked about beauty, but it's also life is temporary, which goes back to death, but it's like, what do we do while we're here? And, it's we think of like, we have children and we have grandchildren and so on, what kind of a life are we setting up for them? We've been lucky that, we haven't got to the point where we're in the precipice of like destroying ourselves,
Right.
So it's like, how do we avoid that? How do we come up with solutions to avoid that? But I think that we're spurred on by the beauty that is around us. It's like if you enjoy the woods, if you enjoy your backyard, if you enjoy the national forest or the lakes, all those things. I mean, those things rely on us now as to what happens.
Right.
So we're the caretakers of the earth.
Right.
And that's a responsibility. Before, it didn't seem like it was a big deal because, there's more land than there were people. Now there's going to be more people than there is land at some point. And it's like, how do we sustain that?
I don't know. Like they say in business, that's above my pay grade. Right.
Yeah. Some of those are questions I ask myself. I was like, at the same time, saying all that, one of the things that I still enjoy is like I remember in looking at art, and I remember I saw a painting of a Picasso painting of a picture, just a water picture, and all it was just that, and it was just a really beautiful painting.
Right.
Or a Morandi still life painting, beautiful little picture.
Yeah. And
it's like it has the content is right there. It is what it is. It is beauty, and sometimes I think maybe I need to relax and do something that people just enjoy as well.
Right.
So I think that art is there to provoke and also to inspire.
Right. So you build your own stretchers?
No, I don't. I used to.
Okay.
I have a friend of my father-in-law built them.
Okay.
And he does a great job. I used to build them for a long time, and then at a certain point, I just I don't want to do these. I'm getting to the point that I don't like stretching them either.
Right.
So when I'm doing something that size, I have to get on the floor, and my knees are not as good as they used to. So.
Right. And so, what, like this intermezzo over here? What is that, like 6 by 12 or what?
That's 6.5 by 10 feet, 8 inches, and that is based on the ratio of the movie screen image.
Got it. All right.
The other reason for that is like one of the things I found out in reading after 9/11 was that some people from Washington went to Hollywood, and Hollywood comes up with a lot of ideas about in sci-fi movies, drama, espionage, and they can come up with far-fetched ideas, because 9/11 was a far-fetched idea.
Oh, right.
And it's like, how do we stay in front of that kind of thinking?
Right.
So they went to Hollywood to get consultation about what kinds of ideas would you come up for, say, blowing up a building.
Right, exactly.
Or, and it's like, it's interesting. You go to a place where there's creativity.
Right.
To come up with these. And it goes back to my kind of basic idea that I do wish that all schools, 1 through 12, would teach art all the way through.
Right.
And the reason for that is to continue inspiring creativity, to think outside the box.
Right.
And not that I necessarily want more artists out there, and I don't necessarily think that they need to become artists, but in whatever they do, they can be creative.
Right.
And I think that is real important. So the people in Washington were not creative, and could have been.
Right. So
they really went to some place that was all creative.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, oftentimes when you challenge a student, the real benefit is, in developing those creative skills, those strategic thinking, strategic problem-solving skills, in that you're asking them to answer a question that doesn't have a clear-cut answer, right?
Right.
The answer is not binary. It's not set in stone. How are you going to respond to this? And
right.
And
it's a problem solving situation.
Right. In businesses all around the country. I mean, I think businesses are beginning to learn and appreciate that, very few issues come up in the course of a business day that are black and white. This is exactly what the answer should be. You need folks to be able to, like you say, be adaptable, be able to be creative in how they respond to challenges. And I agree that they're, I remember having this debate with an engineer at a dinner party, and he was trying to tell me, that the arts, that it's nice that you teach art,
yeah,
but the value is in the engineering. I'm like,
right.
Well, it's great that all of your numbers can come out exactly to the decimal, but there's a huge swath of the world where people have to deal in the gray area, and it's the creatives, and the folks
right.
that have the creative training that are going to thrive in those gray areas, right? And so,
and the thing about I'm working with a structural engineer, but the structural engineer is at the service in this point of the creative person. And as well as when I do any artist that does public art, they're probably going to be using a structural engineer,
right?
But they're at the service of the creativity, and the same way with architecture. I mean, again, you go back to architecture. It's like the engineers who are working on these things will be working to make sure this all works in helping create a new structure.
Right.
So, but I think that there are also, engineers could be creative in themselves, and there have been engineers who have done really good things. My brothers came out as a mechanical engineer from UT Austin, and he ended up working for Motorola, and then he now works for a spin-off of Motorola called Freescale, and they kind of are designing new computer chips.
Right.
I mean, they're coming up with new ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're making them smaller and smaller.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, because that's, the opportunity for new solutions
Right.
kind of lies in that, right? So oil on canvas pretty much exclusively these days. Your chalupas, were those colored pencil? What were those?
On paper, they were Prismacolor pencils.
Right.
And unfortunately now, Black Arches paper. When I started using Black Arches paper in the late 70s, Arches is a really good brand.
Right.
The Black Arches paper that I've been using is now falling apart. So if you've seen the website, you've seen all those drawings, and there's a drawing over there. Right. Fortunately for the ones that are framed, they seem to be holding up. They're unframed. There was some poster that I did for the Chulos Fronteras show. That was my own artwork, but it was just a poster. And they were printed on the Black Arches paper. And I was going through them in a portfolio that I had, and I just picked them up and they just start crumbling. So I'm trying to get a hold of a paper conservator to see if maybe I should back these with,
I was just going to say, I would imagine that they're probably going to tell you to back it somehow.
Use some kind of adhesive, and what kind of adhesive, and back it up with maybe not a really strong paper, maybe a Japanese paper or something
right.
that
like
just holds
paper.
it. Yeah.
Right.
So I need to find that out, do some research, because I still have a few of those drawings, and they were very important to me because they helped. For a while there, I was going in the linear progression
right.
for about 10 years, and then I went back to the way I was in graduate school, everywhere. So,
right.
But yeah, as far as oil, straight oil, yes. As far as oil, I prefer oil than acrylic. But I still like using other materials, and I still like to do that as well.
Right.
And which when I've been working with stainless steel now, just kind of like it's a lot of fun,
right.
Working on large scale pieces.
So that piece there, I assume, is it going to be an orange painting, or is that the ground? I assume it's the ground.
The painting, the orange painting, that's pretty much almost finished.
Okay, because that's the color that my pieces usually are when I've started. With use like that burnt sienna or the red oxide sort of ground, and so I wasn't sure.
Well, the painting is a combination of an old painting with the skull and antlers over that. The painting behind it was a painting that I did in 2004, and it was a pattern that was taken from a photograph of a woman's sweater. And I then used it, and then I had it, and then I painted the pattern, and then I had the orange, like orange wash,
right?
And I liked that, and then I felt like sometimes this is like, unfortunately, I should have left it at that, and then I decided to add something else to it a few years later, and then later I didn't like the way that looked. And then now I like it better.
Yeah, Benito, I really appreciate you being willing to sit down and carve out time in your schedule to talk, and it's it's been really informative and just really intriguing to see your path, because it's it's not exactly a straight line. And
Yeah, it's like my work.
Right, and I think it gives, I feel like a lot of artists, are the types that listen to this sort of thing and, give them reassurance that, their path doesn't have to be, a clear-cut linear progression, that you can hop around from coast to coast and, one thing to, curating to painting to teaching.
And I didn't even talk about the magazine that helped start either. So.
Yeah, so Art Lies, right?
Yeah.
And so is that still?
It's somewhat Art Lies about I don't remember the exact date. It was around for 17 years. I became an Emeritus